40% of Americans couldn't come up with $400 for an emergency. People of Reddit, could you come up with the money? Why? Or why not? I'm the person my family come to in an emergency. I lent my parents $500 for rent in January. They finally paid me back last week, been making small repayments for the past few months. They all work. I have a bit of a better job than everyone else, but nothing fabulous. They're all just terrible with money. So I tuck a few bucks away every pay because I know the day will come when they can't make rent, or need to buy food to get through to the next pay. That's very responsible. I would maybe suggest sitting down and talking about the money you lend them. Discuss repayment terms with small interest repayments. Education in the world of borrowing in a way that isn't going to make them lose everything. I've been able to do this with my brothers, and they finally starting to grow out of our parents' bad habits. They still spend every single dollar in their paycheck each week, but the money is starting to last longer, and I'm hopeful that they will eventually be able to start their own savings. My parents are a lost cause. If I try to talk to them about money, they think that I'm making out like I'm better than them or something, which is not my intention. I hear you. That's a difficult situation, but your family are incredibly lucky to have a level head like yours. Thanks. I just want us all to be able to live comfortably, but still within our means. I try to avoid credit wherever possible and avoid overspending on unnecessary items. I'm concerned that my parents are aging, my mom has never worked and my dad is nearly 70, and that they're not going to be able to support themselves in retirement. It's a scary thought, but what else can you do? Not much, unfortunately. You can't help people who don't help themselves. I would say, look at where any of their assets lie, anything that may be monetized, and work towards creating a fund for them. Ultimately the goal is about 5% withdrawal from assets will keep someone liquid through their retirement. And leave something behind. I got like 20 bucks, man. I'll just die. Don't die. If it ever came to that, DM me please. Yes. I learned to treat my savings account like a bill. Every month a certain amount is due and must be paid. If I have to take money out, then I have to put back in more from the following paychecks until I have replaced it. That is a fantastic way of thinking about it. Keep up the good work. Thanks. I wish I would have started it earlier in life. I am 100% teaching my kid to treat it this way so she will be better off sooner. Make that bill the same every month, and if possible, put it in the market, tied as closely to the S&P 500. If your daughter is young, she can really benefit hugely from your advice. Yes, but it took a long time to get there. I did not understand money management until I was on my own and paying for everything. Absolutely. I get nervous and start saving if I'm ever below 10K in the bank, which honestly isn't much to begin with. Sigh. No. And every time I think we're getting close to be able to consistently put money in our savings account, something happens. I'm in that weird in-between position where I make too much money to get approved for Medicaid, but not enough money to get health insurance, and I have 3 weeks to come up with $300 for an MRI. So I guess I'm in that 40%? Shrugs, I'll find a way. Lots of people never know this, or simply assume it isn't true before asking, but in a lot of cases you can negotiate a way to pay off a medical bill with the service provider by simply asking. Some people just see the total amount and freak. However, in some cases I've seen hospitals and offices set up $1 payments to help a person at least pay toward their bill as they figure something out. It might not work for every office or service, but they'll usually at least try to work with you. I could. I'm currently a college student, but definitely defying the broke college kid stereotype. I'm not wealthy, but because I went to a state school and got a decent grade-based scholarship, my tuition is affordable with a cashier job, and I have enough money to get an, admittedly cheap, apartment. My parents taught me good money skills pretty well. I'm able to work through college when most can't because of it. In-state tuition is very cheap, plus I save money by not owning a car. I bike, buying clothes and furniture from thrift stores, and not wasting money on things like drugs/alcohol or the newest technology. I've had the iPhone 6 since 2015 and it's done literally everything I've needed it to since then. An iPhone 10 is absolutely a waste of money if you're struggling to pay bills. Maybe I'm just not good at empathizing, but sometimes I legitimately don't understand how people can't manage to stay financially sound despite earning a decent salary. I've met people who make $60K a year and are still in massive credit card debt because of their own poor choices. I genuinely don't get how you can make such bad economic decisions. I mean, I have credit, so yeah. It isn't real money, but in case of an emergency I could put it on my card and figure out how to pay it off later. Not perfect, But that's what emergencies are for. This is the answer I would be expecting from most people. Yeah, I don't have tons of savings, but 400 wouldn't be a problem. Not American, but have about enough for a bottom-end new car saved, although I'll buy second-hand instead. Got there by being frugal on the big expenses, the small ones I make no attempt to cut down on. The difference between renting a shitty place and a nice one is $5,000 a year. Not having pets helps a lot too. In 2009, after watching a whole bunch of people at my job getting laid off, it hit me on my way home. What am I going to be doing when I retire? Because I sure as hell won't be working here. So I started putting money away. 10 years later, I got laid off. I was fortunate enough to get severance. When that ran out I had savings. The usual advice is to have 3 to 6 months of your money saved up. I had a year. $400 for an emergency? I can handle that. I could always ask my dad for a small loan of $400. Next thing you know, you could be president. Yes, because I understand the difference between having the money for an expense and being able to afford an expense. I also know the importance of a savings account. I have so many friends that drain their bank accounts. Oh, I have $1,000 left in my account, time to buy a new phone. Their current phone is 1 year old. Then they drain their bank account. One of these friends just had an emergency expense for a pet. He showed off the pictures of the vet bill. He raised money for that entire bill. So apparently they had no money saved up. Meanwhile he constantly flexes about all his spending. As I mentioned before, he buys a $1,000 phone every year and he constantly buys new gaming systems and VR headsets. Live within your means. Build up a savings account. If a purchase will leave you with little to no money left to put into savings, you can't afford that purchase. Put money into your savings every paycheck. Only touch this money when it's absolutely necessary. It's a challenge to watch those people we care about spend beyond their means. All we can do is try to put them on the right course. We should never flaunt what we have, but we should try to let them know how we do it. People get there eventually. Unfortunately, a lot of people get there a couple years before retirement with no plans. Yes, I have been steadily employed for several years at my family's business. I get paid decent wages, and I have low rent. Awesome, use it to your advantage. Put as much as you can afford towards your future. We can't even come up with enough money for food and rent right now. We aren't hungry, but it won't be long before we face eviction, 5 days before rent is due. Kinda hard to get a job with no money for gas either. Basically, living is expensive and we have been because my fiance lost his job. $400 for an emergency right now would basically mean we starve, are homeless, or worse. Yes, Dave Ramsey taught me. 1K tucked away for emergency. Paying off debt now. I'd love to see a source on that. CBS News, nearly 40% of Americans can't cover a surprise $400 expense. If you click the source within the article, it says that 88% of Americans would be able to afford a surprise expense of $400. Not sure why the article boldface lies. But the source the article cites says 88% could and 12% couldn't. 39% would either have to sell or pawn something, or just not be able to afford a $400 expense. Better? 40% of Americans aren't very creative. I guess that's why they couldn't find any solution to getting $400. Hell, payday loan places will give that to anyone. No, because bills just got paid. Ask again in a couple weeks. I have $600 to my name. No retirement, no equity. Just $600. So yes, I can, to answer your question. I am so effing poor, I'm having a super hard time believing 40% of Americans are even broker than I am. Not really. I've been pretty much dead broke the last 3 checks since I had to move suddenly and have paid full rent on each check. I could probably go to someone for help, but I wouldn't want to, especially not for more than $50. Yes, but only because my ex started paying child support again. Absolutely. Shit is on fire. Day fund is incredibly important. If shit ever goes up in flames, literally or figuratively, you should always have money saved up.